Yeah, shall we begin? It's exactly 10 o'clock. Okay, good morning to everyone. Respected resource person, Professor T P Ashoka sir, the office bearers of the AP, and my dear friends. We are extremely fortunate to have with us an illustrious personality as a resource person today. He is Professor T P Ashoka, a well-known critic and a scholar from our state. Professor Ashoka has been actively involved in teaching and writing in the field of literature, film, and theatre for the last 4 decades. Apart from teaching English language and literature at Lal Bahudhoor College in Sagara for 36 years, he has conducted more than 400 short-term workshops on literature, film, and theatre all over Karnataka. He was a visiting professor at Kannada University, Hampi, for 2 years. He is a well-known columnist and translator too. He has published book reviews in major dailies in Kannada and English, including the Prajavani, the Vijay Karnataka, the Sanyukta Karnataka, the Hindu, the Indian Express, and monthlies such as Mayura and Kasuri. His Vaidehi Katana, a full-length critical study of Vaidehi's works, has been translated into English and published by Manipal University Press. Professor Ashoka has authored more than 35 books in Kannada, which include 18 collections of critical essays and several monographs and full-length studies of major Kannada writers like Kuempu, Shivaram Karanta, Masi, U.R. Anantamurthy, Tejasvi, H.S. Venkatesh Murthy, Vaidehi, Boluvar Muhammad Kunyi, Devanu Mahadeva, Sri Krishna Adinahalli, and Shankara Bokashi Puneka. Professor Ashoka has received several prizes, awards, and honors from various prestigious institutions like Central Sahitya Academy, Karnataka Sahitya Academy, Mysore University, and Govinda Pai Research Institute. He has also bagged the Aryabhatta, the Sandesh, and the Vardhamana Awards. His Kathana Bharati, Studies in Indian Literature, published by Manipal University Press, won the Central Sahitya Academy Award in 2017. Professor Ashoka's work, Kruti Jagattu, Studies in World Literature, has been published by Manipal Universal Press. He chaired the 6th Mysore Jilla Kannada Sahitya Sammelana in 1996 and also chaired 86th Dharmasala Sahitya Sammelana in 2018. He was honored by the TV channel News 18 as the Varshada Kannadiga in 2018. The GSS Award and the Masi Award have been conferred on him for his lifetime contribution to literary criticism. Expressing my deep sense of gratitude to Sri Ashoka sir for accepting our invitation, I extend a hearty and respectful welcome to him to this program. Let me extend a special welcome to the office bearers of the AET, Dr. Shija, Ms. Meera Koino, Ms. Shanti Roche, and our technical experts, Ms. Chandrika and Rosalia. Finally, I welcome all the teachers who are participating in this webinar. Thank you. May I now request Professor T P Ashoka sir to deliver his talk on Dweepa, the novel written by Nadizosa. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your kind words. There are many familiar faces on my screen. Happy to have a look at those images. And it's an opportunity for me to have new friends from Mangalore University. Now, let me begin with a short introduction to D'Souza, and then I will slowly move on to the text. Dweepa Island in English translation, translated by Sushila Punita. Sushila Punita taught in Mount Carmel's Bangalore. She's a very senior professor, and she has translated a number of Kannada classics into English, of which U.R. Anantamurthy's Bharatipura is one which was shortlisted for the Booker International Literary Award. Lal D'Souza was born and brought up in Sagar, and he lives in Sagar. He was born in 1937, did his intermediate course from Sahyadri College, Shimoga, and then he joined the PWD Sagar Taluk as a second division clerk, and was in government service for nearly 35 years. A special mention may be made here. He was a witness to the hydroelectrical projects in and around Sagar. He worked in that area for nearly 25 years, and he has observed, experienced what was going on there. He is deeply rooted in Sagar, and he is one of the most popular and prolific writers in Kannada. You take any journal or magazine in Kannada, either his name or pseudonyms are found there. Normally he writes it in his own name, not D'Souza, but sometimes he writes, he uses pen names like Nadi, Judasa, and so on. He's so prolific that in every, at least once in a fortnight, his name appears in one or the other newspapers or journals in Kannada. He has published more than 35 novels, hundreds of stories and essays, several biographies, and so on. He received honorary doctorate from Kuvempu University, and he has won many awards and prizes. He has written more than 35 novels, I told you. Broadly, you may group them into three. One set of novels, including Dweepa, followed by Mulugade. Mulugade is submersion. And Voddu. Voddu is dam or barricade. And Gunavante means a worthy woman. And several other novels like Neeru, water, Undu Jalapatada Sutta, E Nela, E Jala. See, all these novels can be grouped into one where water is the central motif. Water, river, especially the Sharavati river, is present in all these works. So water is a very important motif. And then he has also published a number of novels which deal with the local Christian life. Two novels are very interesting. One is Baman, B-I-M-A-N, that is translated into English and published by Manipal University. And his important novel is Igarjiya Sutta Hattu Manegalu, 10 houses around the church, wherein he traces the arrival and the development of Christianity in Sagar Taluk. third group of novels deal with the lives of different communities living in Sagar. As most of you know, the two dominant communities live in Sagar are Havyak Brahmins and Devaru community. And there is also a tribal-like community called Hasalaru. And he has written a number of stories and novels dealing with the lives of Devaru and Hasalaru. Havyak Brahmins, are present in the first set of novels because they were the people who were affected by the construction of several dams across the Sharavati River. And all these novels are set in Sagar Taluk. Maybe, some of the characters in some stories and novels may move up to Shimoga or to Honavar. Otherwise, he is so deeply rooted in Sagar that he has been a witness to all that has taken place in Sagar for the last 6 decades. He is not just a mute spectator or a silent witness. He has participated in all the important political, environmental, and social movements. So his presence is felt everywhere. He has responded to all major developments in Sagar Taluk, be it the construction of several dams, hydroelectrical projects, or the historically famous the Kagodu farmers movement, or the other socio-political movements in Sagar. And all these things, have been transformed into stories, novels, and essays. Now, let us concentrate on the first group of novels where Sharavati is a major presence, where water is a major motive. Before the construction work began in Sagar, life was very quiet and silent. People lived in their communities, very close to nature, on the banks of river, covered by forests, or living in small villages. Agriculture being their main occupation. The Havyak community concentrated on the areca product and paddy, and the Devaru community were mostly farmers, and they were the community who were benefited, after the Kagodu peasants movement, and when the land reform acts were legislated, it is this community who were agricultural laborers began to own lands. Now, when the dam construction started, it made a very big impact on the villagers who were living on the banks of Sharavati. It began with a positive note. In a story by D'Souza, there is a very interesting meeting between a senior engineer and the villagers some 50 years ago. The senior engineer visits these villagers and promises moon for them. Once the dam is constructed, you will get drinking water, You will get irrigated water for your fields and so on and so on. The villagers are so moved that one of the villagers actually touches the feet of the engineer in reverence. But what happens? The engineer returns after 2 or 3 years and tells these villagers, "I'm sorry, we are not constructing the dam here. We are constructing it, 5 kilometers upwards. And I'm sorry to say that your villages may be submerged. But we are building a new nation, and it will be a great sacrifice, from your part." And now, if you take it as a clue to the future writings of D'Souza, especially dealing with this theme, we may observe two very important things. One is the theme of submersion, followed by displacement. See what happens when the flowing water, the flowing river is stopped by a barricade or a dam. So the backwaters begin to drown villages, not only houses where these people live, but also it has a long-standing effect and impact on the flora and fauna of that place. Forests are drowned, not only human beings, but wild animals are displaced, and they move from the forest area towards human habitation, creating more and more fear and dangers for the people living there. But do only houses drown? Do only forests drown? D'Souza explores how, so not only the physical structures, or not only trees, bushes, but life patterns are drowned, memories are drowned, significant monuments, including burial places which are very referential for many people. All these things are burned, are drowned. And therefore, it is not just a physical damage. It is not just a financial damage. It is a permanent damage on the psyche of a certain community. Their temples, their places of worship, places of mythological importance for them. For example, in Dweepa, there is a reference to Sita Parvata. All these things are drowned, submerged. And what is the effect of this? So as I told you, once these things are submerged, once these things are drowned, their fields are drowned, they can't live there, they have to move from that place. So this departure is not out of choice. It's a forcible evacuation. And they have to move to unknown places. They are derooted here completely, and they have to seek a new life elsewhere in places where they have not seen, and some of them may have to change their professions, etc., etc. And all that was valuable to them, their fields, houses, memories, patterns of life. See, they have no value because everything is valued in terms of money only. The compensation amount they get, rules out other possibilities completely. See, for example, if you when you begin reading Dweepa, see, there is a very interesting reference. Dweepa, the story of Dweepa takes place in a place called Hosamane, which is inhabited by only 4 families. And except Ganapaya's family, other families, they get compensation and compensatory land and they move. Ganapaya does not get compensation because his papers are lost in the government office, so they are not able to trace it, and he has to live alone with his family there, a family of 3 people. And now D'Souza underscores a very significant point here. As long as we are living in a community, the class differences are not they're not so strong. They're not obvious. See, somebody may have 10 acres of land, some may have 3 acres, but it doesn't matter because there is no significant difference in their lifestyle. But now, for the first time, Ganapaya realizes that he is poor compared to his neighbors because the compensation amount that he may receive in rupees, is very small compared to what his neighbors got. So now, see, look at this paradigmatic shift in their status. As long as they were living in a community, they were all farmers. They were all small farmers, agriculturists. But now, a new element has entered. Communities are disintegrating. Communities are becoming societies, and all these societies have become a nation state. They are not just the villagers of Hosamane now. They are the citizens of modern India. They are the citizens of a nation state. And as citizens of nation state, their sacrifice is demanded. For the benefit of the majority, what if a minority of people, a small group of people, become victims? That is the official narrative. That is the government narrative. And at this point, we have to understand that, this kind of development took place not just in Sagar, but there are thousands of such instances all over India. But D'Souza concentrates on the micro and tries to touch the macro. So, what is happening in India at a macro level is reflected in this little narrative. D'Souza has never written any mega narrative. All his narratives are little narratives, but he is such a sensitive writer that he can see the developments in modern India by looking at the developments in Sagar and around. So what does D'Souza do now? As I told you, he's not just a mute spectator. He's not just a silent witness. He's not just recording what is happening before him. He also emphasizes the points of view of the victims. In any developmental game, so two narratives are found. One is the official government grand narrative of the nation state, which promises that by undertaking these developmental projects, the lives of the Indians would be made better. They will get all sorts of benefits. That's fine. That is, only the point of view of the beneficiaries is emphasized in the governmental narrative. But writers take a different point of view. Not only D'Souza, but any writer worth his salt, he begins to foreground the points of view of the victims. Benefit, fine. Benefit for a number of people, that's fine. But at what cost? D'Souza and other writers begin to pose this question, and they begin to sensitize us. So in this background, if we come to the novel as such, it is very clear that Dweepa Island, D'Souza's novel, is a critique of the developmental projects, the official state grand narratives. So that is very clear. And both the people are physically present there. Even as the people of Hosamane Halli are living there, there is also a government office which is looking after this project work, especially the activities of displacement, compensating these people and so on. Their office is also there. And these people meet. And in their meetings, these points of view begin to clash. See, what the officials in the government office say would not, consider the personal sorrows, the personal losses of, these victims. They only say, see, what's your problem? See, we are compensating you. We take you money. We help you in the transportation of your goods. So what's your problem, they say. But they will never understand, the sorrow within, the losses that these people are living. Now, what I'm saying is, in this little narrative, in this kind of simple encounter between the people and the government, D'Souza is able to reflect the larger realities of modern India, especially in terms of the developmental politics. And he traces the multifaceted impact of these developmental projects on people, who are living there for a very long time, who had their roots now, and the government does not understand what it means to be derooted. So that element has been focused in this novel. And now if we move on to the actual story told in this novel, those of you who are familiar with the novel know that there are 4 families there. It's called Hosamane Halli. Hosamane because, some person came from elsewhere and, that had become a Hosamane, and now Hosamane is the name of the village itself. And 3 families leave. They take their compensation and go. And now, what is focused is Ganapaya's family. Ganapaya, his wife Nagu, and Ganapaya's father. He is old. He is an asthmatic. They have, some acres of land, and now they live in constant fear now. What is the fear? Whether they would get their compensation at all, and whether they would have a normal, respectful departure like the other families. That's one thing. Because their papers are last in the office. That's one thing. Secondly, they live under a grave fear that any moment their lands and house may be submerged. As the water level raises, they may be completely drowned. That's the second fear. The third fear is, I was talking about the fears, the dangers, the kind of displacement, etc. And now it's very interesting. Many animals, they have lost their forests. They have no place to live. They are also displaced, and they are slowly moving towards Hosamane in this particular novel. So from the forest to the human habitation. And this is another fear now. The tiger has already killed one of their cows. The tiger may attack them any moment. Snakes begin to crawl into their houses, and so on and so on. So the abstract fear becomes very, very concrete in these developments. And as the story moves, we know that Ganapaya's father and only the couple is here. In order to help this couple, a person called Krishnaya, he comes from Talagupa. Krishnaya is not even their relative. No, he was an orphan who was brought up by Nagu's parents. Krishnaya is 10 years older than Nagu. They were childhood friends. They were playing with each other and so on. But when Nagu becomes young, Nagu's mother discourages, their meetings and games and all that. But still, there is an emotional bondage between Nagu and Krishnaya. And when Krishnaya is asked to help them, he comes here and he begins to help the couple. And now the title Dweepa, begins to get its resonance now. See, Dweepa at 2 levels. One is Hosamane is becoming a Dweepa, because every rainy season the water level is increasing and they are slowly cornered. The Sharavati river, comes nearer and nearer to their place, drowning their fields and so on. So a Dweepa is being created. Dweepa is being created because of the human intervention, because of the governmental intervention, because of the intervention of the developmental project. It is not a natural island. It is an artificial island created by the developmental projects. See, it's so familiar even now, isn't it? If we look at newspapers, elephants coming on roads, wild animals, being seen on the streets and so on and so on, and floods being created. These are all artificial, man-made, thanks to the intervention of the government and what they call development. That is one Dweepa that is focused here. Another Dweepa is being created among these three individuals. There are only three human beings here against this vast flow of water, the forest behind, Sita Parvata being there. No other human beings are seen. There are only three people, and there is some sort of a tension in their relationships now. Nagu has a soft corner for Krishnaya and vice versa. That is not liked by Ganapaya. Ganapaya becomes tense, and Nagu also becomes tense. Krishnaya also becomes tense. He begins to ask himself, whether his presence is breaking this family. On the one hand, Sharavati dam was breaking their family, and now is my presence breaking the relationship between Nagu and Ganapaya. So should I leave the place? So as long as I continue to live here, see, I may create another island. Ganapaya becomes an island, Nagu becomes an island. Am I not morally responsible for this? He is asking himself. Nagu's tension is slightly different. She has been liking Krishnaya ever since she was a child. And now when he comes here, in comparison with her, angry-faced, hard-spoken husband, Krishnaya becomes even more attractive. And what if I talk to Krishnaya? She asks herself. And it is because of Krishnaya that I have some life here. My husband does not talk to me. He does not, care for me. And she cannot control her emotions. And now the novel, automatically gets another symbolic dimension. One symbolic dimension is the two kinds of islands. And now, what is the other symbolic dimension? See, as I told you, nature has a predominant presence in most of the narratives of De Souza, like Kuvempu or Tejasvi. Nature is always there. Sharavati is always there. That is Prakriti. But Prakriti has two meanings, isn't it? Prakriti has two connotations. Prakriti, nature, means flora and fauna, the forests, the trees, the rivers, the mountains, etc. But Prakriti also means Swabhava, the human nature. So nature here is explored in both of its connotations. One is the physical nature, flora and fauna. Another is the human nature. And what is the novel telling? See, as we move towards the end of the novel, we come to know that Sharavati, the flowing river, can be stopped somehow, isn't it? By constructing a dam against it, constructing a barricade against it. Somehow, the flowing water can be stopped, can be controlled. But the novel begins to ask one question. See, you can control the flowing river, but can you control the flowing emotions? See, the nature outside can be controlled, but the nature inside, the swabhava, the human nature, and that's what we see throughout the novel. The emotions of Nagu, they cannot be controlled. They cannot be controlled, and there is a scene in which Nagu and Krishnaya, see, they become one. That creates another moral conflict in Krishnaya, and he leaves Hosumanehalli. When you come to the end of the novel, you will see that he thinks that, see, it would be dangerous. It would not be fair on my part to continue to live here, because as Sharavati is controlled, Nagu may not be controlled. So with that kind of a realization, he goes, he wants to swim across. Nagu, follows him, and she also jumps into the river. In helping, in trying to help Nagu, Krishnaya is also drowned. So both of them are drowned. That is the story point, and the novel ends there. Now, as I told you, it's a very short novel, and obviously, it's not a very complex narrative also. See, all the complex, multifaceted byproducts of the developmental politics, they are not seen here, obviously, because it's a very simple story. But what is interesting here is, in this little narrative, in this narrative of what happened to, a lower middle class family near the dam site, D'Souza has been able to make us look at the larger narratives around us. And that's why this novel is very interesting and very refreshing. It has, it was first published in 70s, but in the last 50 years, people have not lost interest in this narrative. Also because, similar things are happening outside, and also because the narrative of D'Souza is very refreshing, very interesting. And then Dweepa attracted the national and international attention also after Girish Kasarvalli made a film of the same name based on this narrative. He has made several changes, but that film made this novel available to non-Kannada readers and the non-Kannada audience also. In a recent interview, Girish Kasarvalli was asked, in some film festival in Australia, see, they wanted a film from Girish Kasarvalli, and they wanted this film in particular, Dweepa. And Girish asked them, you can choose any of my films, but why this particular film? And then they said, no. A similar thing happened in a village near Sydney. So we can connect our own experience to the experience of Dweepa. So, see, this is actually, as I told you, it's not something happened in Sagara Taluk only or Shimoga District or Karnataka. See, everywhere in the world, in modern civilization, is moving very, very differently. I mean, lots of deforestation are taking place. Lots of people are being displaced for one reason or the other. So it's a very universal phenomenon. This universal has been caught not in terms of a mega narrative, but a very little narrative. So what interacted with the people around resulted in a novel like Dweepa, followed by other novels like, as I told you, Mulugade, Submersion, Voddu, Barricade, so on and so. So it's very interesting how a simple narrative, has universal dimensions. That is the significance of this novel. Well, friends, these are some of the things I wanted to share with you. And now, so I'm very keen to listen to your responses, your reactions, and if you have any questions and queries, so we can deliberate on them. Not that I will answer your questions, but I will.
Dear participants, if anybody wants to ask the question, you can ask. Here is one question in the chat box from Dr. Veena. The question is, water is life giver as well as life taker. I repeat, water is life giver as well as life taker. Sir, can you elucidate on this sentence in the context of the novel?
Okay. See, water is a life giver. I mean, that is very obvious. But here, what happens? See, we see two things here. One is the rains. See, rains are uncontrollable. We need rains for our agriculture, for our livelihood, etc., etc. But rains can be very wild also. We can destroy your properties, destroy your house and your